Reporting for WGBS News, here are Lois Lane and Clark Kent.
Hi, Lois and Clark here now with Elena, and it's a pleasure to see you here at the celebration.
Thank you.
And actually, just wanted to ask you, not having been familiar with the character before Smallville, once you did find out who you were playing, what was the first things that you turned to?
Well, the first thing I did is I Googled
Yeah.
Black Canary. I got the call from my agent and said, okay, they're going to tell you it's a superhero. Her name's the Black Canary. Mm-hmm. And I read some stuff on Wikipedia. And then I think I went to a comic book store and I grabbed a few comic books. I had not seen Smallville, actually, so I rented a season of Smallville, season 6 of Smallville, and I watched a handful of episodes just to sort of get the tone and, get to know the characters and the actors and all of that. And then really I kind of fell in love with Black Canary. So I read a handful of books, and it's a very interesting mythology, and there's a lot to it. There's like 30 years of it, and then there's the whole Green Arrow thing, and then there's the Dinah Laurel Lance and Dinah Drake Lance and everything. So there's a lot to go through. Mm-hmm.
Is there a favorite part, having found out all these different things, is there anything from that you would have liked to have explored with your character?
On Smallville?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, had there been more room, I don't know why or how it happened, but I think it would have been nice to have an opportunity to tell the Dinah Ollie dynamic. As it is, the way that Black Canary kind of stayed in Smallville was she stayed part of the JLA. Yeah. And she sort of it was always implied that we were a team working together for whatever circumstance it was. And then they tried to play that sort of tension between her and Ollie, but I think it was hard to incorporate because it wasn't a part of the active storyline. Yeah. So it would have been a nice part to play because it's true to the mythology of the character. That being said, Smallville's got a whole cast of characters that they have to write for, so I'm happy to have my part on it.
Definitely. And
switch.
And no, I think it's great that you're from Canada, and it's really interesting that there's been a lot of Canadians who have been involved sort of in the Superman. I mean, Margot Kidder was from Canada, and there's been a lot of that. Do you think it's
Erica's our very own?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of Lois's from
Canada. And Lois and Dinah don't get along. But that's okay. I like you.
There you go. But now, do you think it's harder to break into the film industry being from Canada? Is that a little bit of a disadvantage? Or?
The disadvantage is that everyone thinks I'm a Canadian actor, and I didn't start my acting career until I moved to the States.
Okay.
So I am constantly kind of battling that with my agents because I'll get offers from Canadian shows on Canadian things, and I'm like, I'm not a Canadian actor. I am a Canadian, and I'm a very proud Canadian. That being said, I live in LA. I have an American passport. I have a house. I have, my life is in California.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I would imagine I do have a lot of Canadian actor friends, and if you're based in Vancouver or Toronto as a Canadian actor, you don't really have an opportunity to get the bigger roles. Erica was so lucky to get the Lois Lane part. Right. Usually and it may have been cast out of the States as well, and she just,
ended up landing the role.
But a lot of times, I did Stargate, I did Smallville, I did Painkiller Jane, all shot in Canada, and I booked all of them out of the States.
Right.
So, yes, I do believe it's difficult.
Okay. And
it's difficult anyways. Let me just say that. It's a hard job. Like, you go through an entire pilot season. Like, I just did 7 months, and I've been on probably 200 auditions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got one job. And that's the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to talk about it glamorously, but it's not that glamorous.
Now, I heard you earlier say that you hadn't really been a comic book fan prior to your role. Have you since then, have you become maybe a little more appreciation for the comic book world?
Absolutely. So much so that I wrote my own comic book.
Really?
Yeah. It's called Agent Mom.
Okay.
And it's I co-created it with my husband John and Tony Lee, who writes for Doctor Who, and he writes his own comic. His original comic is called The Gloom. And our comic, Agent Mom, is on mtv.geek.com.
No, that's good.
A little bit. Check it out.
We'll be sure to put it in there.
Yeah. So it's with MTV Comics. It lives online right now. We just broke the story for the third book, and we've got, I think, 5 or 6 books in the works. So
wonderful.
Total, 5 or 6 books total. So yeah, I absolutely appreciate it. I appreciate, I was introduced a little bit to the science fiction world when I did Painkiller Jane, and that was a comic book character. And then I did the Black Canary, and a little bit more, and then I did Stargate, and it was just like way, it's a whole nother world. And then my first year of Stargate, I was like, I like this. And I met up with Tony Lee, and we started spitting ideas, and it was really my husband's brainchild, and we came up with a story.
Now, how long did that project take?
We started it last May, so
Pretty quick.
yeah, we had it up and running with MTV in October.
Wow.
So about 6 months from the time of conception.
Wonderful. Well, we wish you a lot of success with that. I think
you.
that's pretty exciting. Yeah. This is Lois Lane for WGBS-TV News, and we are here with Brandon Routh. This is an honor. So we'd just like to ask you a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We're doing this for the Superman homepage, so if you want to say a shout out to the Superman homepage.
Thanks, Superman homepage, for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it. And Steve, right?
Yes.
Steve?
Yeah, Steve.
Steve?
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. I know he invited me to a breakfast you guys had, I think it was before I was here on Friday.
Yep.
He tweeted me, and I apologize for not getting back to you, but thanks for the offer anyway. I wasn't here yet.
We really enjoyed you in Superman Returns. Like you said, I'm sure you felt that you were filling a big set of shoes and or boots, as it were.
Both. Clark shoes and Superman.
But you did a great job with that. But I'd just like to know, if you could have your dream role doing anything, what would that be?
Well, I mean, this was already a dream role. It's hard to dream any bigger than Superman, really. Other than that, I guess there are a few books, fantasy books that'd be fun to play characters of. I know there's actually a TV show already that based on the Wizard's First Rule, which is Terry Goodkind, and they're already doing it. What is the show called? I don't remember what the show is called, but Legend of the Seeker. Anyway, Richard Rahl, the title character. Those stuff that I read as a kid. Robert Jordan, his Rand. That just shows how much of a nerd I am. But stuff like that.
We're all nerds together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to turn this over to Clark.
Sure. And now I know that Bryan Singer was continuing, somewhat continuing what had come before in the previous movies. But if you had the opportunity, first of all, how much of that were you given? And then if you had a chance to do just your own, have you thought about any differences that there would be between if you could just do anything you wanted with the character, other than, what would if you had to say, what would you do?
It's tough. I haven't really thought about it. It's a good question. It's hard for me to think of it another way, because the way that Christopher Reeve portrayed Superman is so etched in my mind, and I think that's the right way. I mean, and the script that I was given in Superman Returns, the fact that he is a god on Earth, in many ways. You have to carry around a lot of dignity and grace and all of those things. Now, if you're talking about a younger Superman, that's where there's a little bit more room to play, because he's finding how do I want to be angry, but I'm supposed to uphold this great. I should be upholding this great image because I have all this power. How can I complain about anything in life when I have all this ability, right? So that's where some struggles would be interesting, and that'd be the coming of age story, which I guess is maybe what they're doing now. I don't know. Would be interesting, but I think I answered the question.
Yeah, definitely. And just one more.
Okay. And before you got into acting, or have you always wanted to be an actor, or was there something else maybe you were interested in, or something else you're passionate about?
I was an English major at the University of Iowa.
Iowa.
Yes, that's right. Go Hawkeyes. So I was pursuing that and was going to write novels someday. That's really kind of gone on the back burner, but I always performed and was in music and other forms, theater and stuff, growing up. And so I thought of it as a possibility, but didn't think a small town kid from Iowa could do it. But hey, you can. So mean,
big, right?
maybe I'll get back to the writing, whether it's a screenplay or a book at some point.
That's great. Well, it's an honor meeting you, and thank you for being so gracious with everybody here. You've really graced the town of Metropolis.
It's good.
with
It's
your-
good to finally be in Superman's home. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure
Thanks,
to meet
guys.
you.
Hi, this is Brandon Routh, and you're watching WGBS-TV.
For Smallville, once you did find out who you were playing, what was the first things that you turned to?
Well, the first thing I did is I Googled
Yeah.
Black Canary. I got the call from my agent and said, okay, they're going to tell you it's a superhero. Her name's the Black Canary.
Reporting for WGBS News, here are Lois Lane and Clark Kent.
And I read some stuff on Wikipedia. And then I think I went to a comic book store and I grabbed a few comic books. I had not seen Smallville, actually, so I rented a season of Smallville, season 6 of Smallville, and I watched a handful of episodes just to sort of get the tone and, get to know the characters and the actors and all of that. And then really I kind of fell in love with Black Canary. So I read a handful of books and
Hi, Lois and Clark here now with Elena, and it's a pleasure to see you here at the celebration.
Thank you.
And actually, just wanted to ask you, not having been familiar with the character before.